Hello, this is Josh Belk, and I want to thank you for taking a moment to listen in to the Belk on Business podcast. On today's podcast, we are going to begin walking through the financial metrics we need to be looking at as it relates to the scaling process. Now, this isn't necessarily maybe the metrics you'll be looking at within the scaling process. I think that once you're into this particular process, you're going to have many of these kind of nailed down. But I think as we work through the profitability, and as you kind of go through a lot of the different phases of business, many times you'll hear you're going through kind of through startup to growth, through profitability, and the next stage they have is that of scaling. I think kind of in between those two is a stage that I've heard the profit stage called the viability stage, but I think there's a stage where your business it reaches the point of truly being viable, to the point where it is ready to scale if you're wanting it to scale. I think before you go through the process of scaling your business, you need to make a determination on whether or not you want to scale your business. There's a lot of business owners out there, they find themselves being very successful in business from a profitability end, and even getting to the point of their business being viable, and I'll explain what that is here in just a moment. But what they end up finding out is they don't want to have a big business. They don't want to have a large business with a lot of employees and multiple locations and hundreds or thousands of clients that they want to try to manage. And so sometimes a business owner just decides, you know what, I don't want to scale, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when a business is getting ready to scale, it really needs to kind of look at a few different areas. And I'm going to point out a few. I'm going to mention a few that we've talked about before in the first few phases of the business as we kind of have this conversation today. First of all, what does it mean for a business to be viable? So when we talked about the profitability stage a couple weeks ago in that particular podcast, we talked about a business finally getting to the point of being in the black consistently. So it doesn't mean that it's just managed to be profitable 1 month on the P&L, but they've stayed in a position of being profitable for a period of time. I would say probably multiple quarters. Okay, 2 if not 3 quarters, they have reached profitability in their business. So it wasn't one of these situations they had a really good quarter and all of a sudden they're back to not being profitable again. But their bottom line, they are showing that they are in the black, that they are profitable. Now, for a business to be viable, it does not mean that necessarily that their business is overall cash flow positive. A business can be profitable but be losing cash. And what that means is if there's a lot of debt in the business, if the owner is pulling a lot of cash out of the business, there can be a lot of elements that are on the balance sheet of a business that can really result in a business losing cash flow, but still being positive as it relates to the profit and loss statement. Okay, so for a business to be viable, it truly has to have positive cash flow, and it doesn't mean cash flow from others. What it means is cash flow within its operations on a consistent level, on a consistent basis. If it is doing that, if it is truly showing a profit, if it is indeed cash flow positive, it's not taking on new debt, it's paying back its investors, it's paying back its lenders, and it's able to do this consistently, that business at that point is viable. And that would be the point that I would argue that you truly have a business that can sustain itself. Okay, and so at the point that you're there, that's at the point you really begin to think, okay, do I have a business model that is ready to scale? So the first step, you're going to go in through this process to look inward and look at your team and say, is this something we truly want to do? Do we want to scale this business? My key bread and butter business is an accounting firm. We are at the point right now where we are scaling. And it is it's kind of one of these processes that it's a lot of fun on one end, it's a lot of work on the other. It isn't easy. Okay, it's a lot of work, but guess what? There's no part of business really that is easy. Every single every stage of business has its own pain points, it has its own frustrations, it has its own difficulties. But I hope if you're a business owner that you find it enjoyable. I'm very passionate about it. I truly enjoy the journey of growing a business, and now at this point entering the scaling phase, and we're doing it quickly. So what are 5 different areas? I'm going to point out 5 different areas when you look at in the business as it relates to making a determination of, are we ready to scale? First of all, you need to take a look at your product and service deliverability. So my businesses primarily are all service businesses. You may have a product business, but are you consistently hitting the deliverables in a timely fashion to your clientele? So whether or not you're taking a product and you're delivering that product, or you have a service and you're providing some sort of deliverable to that particular client, are you able to hit that on a consistent basis? Now, as we look through into the prior stages of business, one of the areas we were focused really a lot on cash flow. In another area, we really took a look at profit, especially that EBITDA number. Okay, so we kind of take a look at different things. Once you get into the point of, is my business ready to scale, the metrics that we look at are really going to focus on efficiency. So within our business, are we consistently able to get the product to the customer or provide that service on time, on a timely manner? And are we able to do that consistently? If not, we are not going to be able to scale our business. When we go through and we go to the point of scaling a business, every area that we don't quite have right in the business is going to get exposed. So if I'm not very good at consistently hitting my time targets with my customers, it's only going to get worse when we get to the point of scaling a business. So I would say one of the key areas you're going to want to look at first is, am I able to get that product or that service to the client when I said I was going to, or earlier, on a consistent basis? Secondly, I need to take a look at my inventory turnover ratio. And you're going to see these particular metrics are going to be kind of related in a lot of ways. So my inventory turnover ratio, this is my cost of goods sold over my average inventory. Okay, so am I able to get the inventory in and get it cycled out in a timely fashion? Do I have product shortages? Okay, is my raw material not getting to me on a timely basis? These are areas that's going to help identify pain points as it relates to my production cycle in that process. And so I'm going to want to keep an eye on my inventory turnover ratio. Is it coming in when I need it to get there, and I'm able to get it out the door and cycle that through on a timely basis? So on the front end, we're looking at, am I able to get my product and service to my customers on a timely basis? Now I'm going to turn around and look at, okay, am I able to get it from my vendors, from my suppliers consistently when I need it? And then it's going to help me walk through, do I have the right suppliers? Do I need to engage other suppliers? Do I have issues within my business in that production cycle? So you're going to want to also look internally as it relates to your production cycle. Third, your payback period. And so what this consists of is looking at your customer acquisition cost over your monthly revenue times your gross profit percentage. And you can kind of do a Google search and see what this looks like, but your payback period. And so are you consistently able to get your acquisition cost covered and get your payables, your receivables collected in a timely manner? And is your gross profit percentage where it needs to be? So this particular payback period metric is going to help you measure those areas. So once again, that payback period, my customer acquisition cost over my monthly revenue times my gross profit percentage. And so that payback period, it needs to lessen. So I need to make sure my customer acquisition costs are decreasing, and my collectibles, my collecting my revenue from my client is going up, and my gross profit percentage is also going up. And so if those are moving in the right direction, all three of those areas are moving in the right direction, my business is probably ready to scale. Next, I'm going to be monitoring my client margin. And that's going to be my revenue less my employee wages, less my other direct costs divided by revenue. Once again, you may be listening to this on audio. Even if you are watching this on video, it's going to be hard to visualize this, and so it may be something you may want to kind of just jot down. So your client margin, which is your revenue less your employee wages, less your other direct cost divided by your revenue. So those margins should be increasing. Okay, and lastly, and I think maybe most importantly, because this is really going to kind of point out all those dials you need to be looking at. And if they're moving in the right direction, if all these dials are moving in the right direction, these metrics are moving in the right direction, your business is probably ready to scale. Now, I'm going to mention here brand demand and brand trust. Okay, for your business to be able to scale, people have to know who you are, and they have to be able to trust your business. To be able to do what you said you were going to do and be able to do it on a consistent manner. And if you don't have brand recognition and you don't have brand demand and you don't have brand trust, your business is not ready to scale. Okay, and so how do I know if the demand is there, and how do I know if the trust is there? And I would say that you're going to look at these following metrics, and we've talked about each of these metrics in prior podcasts. So first of all, is my lifetime value of my customer increasing? And we talked about this, I think, in stage number 2. What that is the lifetime value of my customer increasing. What's that telling me? If that lifetime value of my customer is increasing, it means that customer has more value to the business. They're providing us more revenue. They're providing it more consistently. Okay. Secondly, is my monthly recurring revenue increasing. So what this means is my customer base is growing, and I'm also consistently receiving that revenue from my existing clients. Okay. Thirdly, is my retention increasing. So I'm looking at my retention rate. Are more clients staying with us for a longer period of time? Next, are my customer acquisition costs decreasing? If people know who you are, okay, and they recognize your brand, they trust your company, they trust you, then not only are they going to stay with you, they're going to tell others about you as well. And you're going to find that the cost that it requires to obtain a new customer is going to decrease. On the front end, people dump a lot of money onto brand recognition, get people out there to know who they are. Okay, that's great. Maybe people know who you are, but they aren't going to trust you until they start doing business with you. And then if you have that recognition, you have the trust, and they really like working with you, and you do what you say you're going to do in the timeline that you said you're going to do it, they're going to refer you to others, and that reputation is going to improve. When that reputation improves, you're going to find your acquisition costs going down. You're going to find your retention rates going up. So is that retention rate increasing? Next are my customer acquisition cost decreasing. I mentioned that. And then lastly, my conversion rate increasing. And when we talk about the conversion rate, that is the people who reach out to us to do business with us, how many of them actually pay us? How many of them actually sign on the dotted line, so to speak, and pay us to begin working with them? So if we see the lifetime value of the customer increasing, we see the monthly recurring revenue increasing, we see our retention increasing, we see our customer acquisition cost decreasing, and our conversion rate increasing. So those are the dials. We're looking at that, and we see all these moving in the right direction. Then at that point, we probably have a business that's ready to scale. I appreciate you taking a few moments to listen in. This is Josh Belk with the Belk on Business podcast. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you haven't left us a review before, I would ask that you do so if this particular podcast brought you value. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.